Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and this is Comic Uno episode 111. And this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. And I go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week. Only 15 comics this week, so it's pretty much a normal amount. So let's get started. What was the worst pick of the week? What was number 15? And that was DC Comics Bombshells, issue 2. Issue 1 I thought was an okay issue. I thought it was an okay start. Had some fumbles, but here it was a little bit worse. The story I actually liked the most was the Wonder Woman story, and that was generic. I've seen it before. It's, Wonder Woman taking care of Steve. She has to leave the island. She wants to help this world. She meets up with Vera. That's the story. And then the second story is with Supergirl and Stargirl, and the government finds out about Supergirl's powers. And they're like, oh, we can utilize this. And somehow Courtney is going to become Stargirl. I don't know how, but they find out that she will be. And then the artwork, I didn't really like it that much. The action wasn't shown very well. It was kind of dark. I thought the action sequences, especially the flying sequences, could have been shown a bit better. Like over here, it's her stop. But no, actually, I think that was her. Yeah, that was her stopping. So, yeah, the action sequences could have been a little bit better. And then the last story was just kind of confusing because they're all speaking German. It's Zatanna finds out that Constantine's in the crowd. He's British. Seems like she's going to team up with Joker's daughter. I don't know. It's just very confusing because, again, half of it's in German. And then the artwork was kind of unproportional. Like, their faces had a weird proportion. Over here, I thought the proportions were a bit off. So, yeah, I thought there was a lot of negatives towards this issue. Again, the biggest positive was to the Wonder Woman story. I think the Supergirl story has potential, but the artwork wasn't really that great. And then the Zatanna story was kind of all over the place. I couldn't really get into it because it wasn't even in English. So, yeah, wasn't feeling this one this week. I'll still go with it. I still think this book has potential, but I thought this was a pretty weak issue. Bombshells issue 2 gets 2.5 stars. Number 14? Yes, number 14 is Green Arrow, issue 44. Another DC book. I actually didn't get that much DC this week, but 2 DC books in the bottom. So yeah, Green Arrow, issue 44. The artwork is pretty good for the series. I still don't think it fits the book that much, but it fit the story because Oliver is really not in the book. It's about this wolf, and it does connect to the next story, but at the same time, I didn't really care. So that was the biggest point. It's about this wolf that's been traveling with Oliver. You find out that he's connected to magic somehow, and by the end of the issue, Oliver meets this woman that's connected to the wolf. Her name is Tarantula, and I thought she was kind of cool. I think she has potential, but there just wasn't enough Oliver in this book, and I still don't even feel like Oliver is really portrayed that well in this new creative team run. I do think he's a bit bland, and his hair looks really weird, but I still wanted Oliver in this issue. I still like Amiko a lot. So yeah, it's kind of weird that they focused on this wolf so much, but at the same time, I understood they did because it seems like the next arc is gonna follow that. Yeah, I just didn't really care about this one. I was pretty bored with it. So, Green Arrow issue 44 gets 2.5 stars, and that's number 14. Moving on to number 13. This is a surprisingly low book. I didn't think this book was be so low because I've been enjoying it a lot, but We Stand on Guard, issue 3, had a bit of a slower issue here. It doesn't really focus on our main character that much. You get a little bit on her background, how we see that America's taken over Canada. You get to see a little bit of that in her past. But it's mostly about the head woman being tortured by America. And the extent America will go through to torture this woman. And that's pretty much the whole issue. It's just really, again, the extent of what America will go through. Showing how manipulative America is, and that they will harm people, at least in this universe. They will harm people to try to get information. So yeah, I thought this was a little bit of a slower issue. It's not a bad issue, but I want to see more of of our main character. That's something I wanted to see more of, that we didn't get a lot of focus on. But again, it does show how much of a threat America is to the Canadians in this book. Yeah, so I give it 3 stars. I thought it was an okay issue, but there's been a bit better for We Can Stand on Guard. Alright, now we're moving on to number 12, which is The Flash Season 0, issue 12. So this is the last issue of this version of the Flash Season 0. I'm sure there'll be a Flash Season 1.5 like we've been seeing with Arrow. But I liked the story for the most part, but something that pulled me away from it was the coloring, actually. We get to see Caitlin's the main character of this issue, and her color tone's actually really dark. And at first when I was flipping through it, I was like, oh cool, Iris is going to be the main character. But her skin tone was so dark. So I thought that was a little confusing on the artwork side. I didn't think it really looked like Caitlin that much. But then as you read the book, you know, obviously you knew it was Caitlin. But yeah, you know, it was an okay issue. I don't know if it was a needed issue, but I like that we get to see a focus on Caitlin, you know, character other than Flash, because I think that's what a tie-in, you know, these tie-in books could and should do, is focus on some of the secondary characters, and I think Caitlin's obviously a very interesting character. And you get to see some hints of, like, what she can be, because her professor is like this killer, and they're making references of her becoming like colder and, you know, doing these things to break down, and that's obviously something that Caitlin can do, that she's destined to be a villain. So overall, I do think it's a little forgettable. Like, it's not a must-read. But if you're a Caitlin fan, you want a little bit more of Caitlin, read the issue. If you need to, you know, skip an issue this week, this is skippable. Again, the artwork could be a bit better. It's not like the best Caitlin story ever, but at least it is a Caitlin story. So yeah, I thought it was an okay issue. I'm gonna give Flash Season 0 issue 12 3 stars. Let's move on to number 11, which is Jupiter's Circle, issue 6. A little lower than it usually is, but this is the last issue of Jupiter's Circle's first volume. And I thought it was a bit disappointing. It kind of focuses on the same things we've been getting focused on. It's like, oh, well, one of the males have a female friend. Oh, no, it's, you know, it's a controversy because another superhero likes her. So it's just like kind of using women as candy, and that's it. You know, they definitely don't have very much of a story in Jupiter's Circle, which is a shame because there's a really cool, strong female character in Jupiter's Legacy. And there's also one hero here. They haven't focused on her at all, so hopefully the next volume they will. But yeah, it just kind of felt like the same thing. It's these two heroes fighting over a girl, and that's been like every issue. And some of them are really interesting. Like, I really liked when one of the heroes cheated on his wife. I thought that was interesting. And then one of the sons like saying, oh, well, I don't like you, Daddy, you know, because you did that, and protecting the mother because of it. So I like that idea, and I like that story. And there's been good stories for Jupiter's Circle, but I thought this was one of the weaker ones. Artwork's still very good, that's why it's a bit higher. Really love this artwork. It's plain, simple, it fits this time period well, but the story could have been better. It is a little bit on the generic side for Jupiter's Circle. So I'm going to give Jupiter's Circle's 3.5 stars, and I'm excited for Volume 2 to see where it goes. Alright, let's move on to number 10, which is Spider Island, issue 3. It's a bit lower than I want this to be because Spider-Girl's in it. Let's talk about the Spider-Girl story first, because of course the story I'm most excited to talk about. Here we get to see that Spider-Girl is fighting Deimos, but it's not Deimos. It's actually J2, and her mind's just being corrupted. And then she realizes, oh no, I don't think this is Deimos, and her spider sense goes crazy, and she realizes that she's her own worst enemy, and we find out who the villain is actually Hope Van Dyne, which, you know, fits the movie. But what I like about the villain being Hope is that she wants revenge. The reason she's attacking the Avengers and doing all this is because she feels the Avengers killed her parents. And Hope and May can really relate on the same subject with that, because May just lost her father. In line of duty in a way. So they can relate to each other, and I think May could see what she can become if she goes down this route of revenge and rage, which she's been going down. So I'm excited for the redemption arc, and I think we're going to be getting that with issue 4 and 5. And also you get to see Normie and Uncle Ben and Uncle Phil, which was really fun, and it's great to see them. And I think they're going to play a part in Spider-Girl redeeming herself. So great story there. Spider Island was actually pretty good too, though. I still don't really care about the world of Spider Island here. I do think, you know, it's a little cheesy, with some of the Avengers becoming like Green Goblin or a vampire. But I like some parts here where we get to see, you know, Mary Jane. She was part of this Spider Island thing. She becomes like the spider-corrupted person. But they find out that the lizard serum could cure them, so now they're lizards. But at least Mary Jane's in it. I like that because she played a big part of the Spider Island original series. So I like that they at least stuck her in here. One of my favorite parts of this issue, though, or this part of the issue, is definitely Peter and Flash interacting with each other, saying, "You're Venom? What? You're Spider-Man? What?" And I enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed their friendship. Artwork could be a bit better. Just don't love some of the designs. But yeah, so artwork could be a little bit on the better side. But I liked the story overall. Again, am I in love with this world? No, but I do think there's some fun details with the book and, you know, some fun moments. And of course, I love the Spider-Girl story. So Spider Island issue 3 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so moving on to I think we're on number 9. Sorry, I still have my cough from a cold, so sorry if I cough. So number 9 is Injustice Gods Among Us, Year 4, Issue 9. A little bit better than what it's been. I actually liked Year 4's beginning, but now we're always in this lull moment. It's like, alright, you have a little bit too many issues here, where they're just not going anywhere. But here in this issue, they progress the story a bit more, where we get to see Superman's teaming up with Poseidon. And Poseidon just wants to destroy the Amazons and wants to destroy all the gods. And Wonder Woman sees Superman's true colors, and I think she's going to end up teaming up with Batman, which I think is cool. I see, you know, Aquaman, who's been more on the neutral side. He comes into this because obviously it has to do with water, so he's going to have to do something. But the best part of this issue is honestly Harley Quinn and Shazam being in hell, and then she's asking this random girl, like, "What are you in here for?" And she's like, "What do you mean? You're in hell for a reason. What are you here for?" So, you know, Harley just being hilarious and glad that she's kind of alive, so I'm happy about that. I was very upset that she had a horrible death in, you know, a boring death in, issue 8. But yeah, you know, it's a $2.99 book. I thought this was, you know, getting back to speed. It's good artwork. It's not the best issue of Injustice, but at least it's getting there. It's getting at least more interesting. So Injustice Gods Among Us, issue 9, gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so now we're up to number 8, which is Thors, issue 3. This is a bit weaker than I've seen the Thor series. I actually been really enjoying this book. I love the mystery of who killed Jane and the connections of who killed Jane and the seeing familiar faces like Loki. But this is a bit slower because it's more of the interrogation between Ultimate Thor and Loki. And Loki not telling the full truth, not telling a full lie. He's a trickster. But he says, you know, there's a reason why your voice trembles when you say Jane Foster. You have a connection to her. So he ends up going to the Deadlands because he finds out there's more Jane Foster bodies than they thought there was. And we find out who actually ends up killing Beta Ray Bill was another Thor. And now Thor, the 616, and Ultimate Thor are going to work together, try to figure out this mystery. For the most part, I like the narration. I like the book. It's still a really fun book, but I thought this one was a bit slower. There's still good reveals. You find out who killed Beta Ray Bill. But I want to see Jane Foster, you know? We're like promised that. And I really like Jane from the new Thor series, and why I got into Thor is because Jane is new Thor. So I want to see more of her. They're like kind of promising it, and we're not getting to see her. I think that's a bit slower, but still a good book. Again, it's one of the weaker ones of Thor's, but Thor has been so good, and you know, surprisingly really good for someone who's not a Thor fan. So I think someone who's not a Thor fan, I like this issue a little less, but it's still a good issue. So Thor's issue 3 gets a 3.5 stars. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 7, which is Silver Surfer issue 14. I love this book. I really do. I think this is a really unique book. It's one of Dan Slott's best books, in my opinion. In this issue, we get to see Dawn and Norrin. They're recreating the world. They're painting the world. They're trying to recreate the universe. And Dawn actually has the power to recreate her world too. But because she hasn't seen enough of it, some of it turns into these 2D worlds. And her sister warns her about that. It's like, how are you supposed to create the world if you haven't really seen the world? So Dawn doesn't want to ask her sister for help. So she ends up asking Norrin. It's like, oh, you know, help me. You've seen the world. Help me. But somehow there's like 2 Norrin rads, which I got a little confused about. I don't know how that's happening. It gets a little confusing there, but one Norrin's helping Dawn, the other one's still with the other guy. So, you know, the only nitpicks I really have to say about this, first of all, I'm going to say this is a really creative book. I really like how Allred does the artwork here. Really creative. I like how it's like painting the world. It's so cool. And then to see Dawn interact with her family again, that was a lot of fun, especially for her family to see the new Dawn. You know, she's definitely developed and grown since they last seen her. So that's something I really enjoyed. The negatives of it is they're playing God, and I felt like there wasn't a lot of consequences because of it. It's like they're recreating the world. It's like, alright, cool, let's recreate the world. Let's, you know, point a little sun here. So I want to see some consequences. There might be with these two Norns going on, but I didn't really see it here in this issue. So I guess that was a negative. And also I'm still, again, a little confused of who the hell this other Norn rat is, or who this other Silver Surfer is. So yeah, you know, playing God part was interesting, but I think needs to be plotted out a bit more. But I'm excited for the next issue. Hopefully they'll answer those questions. So Silver Surfer issue 14 is another solid issue, 4 stars. And if you're not reading Silver Surfer, it's a really fun book. And one of the better tie-ins for Secret Wars. Alright, we are moving on to number 6, which is Daredevil, issue 18, which is the last issue of Daredevil. And, or at least the last issue of Mark Waid's Daredevil. And that's how I got into Daredevil. So I'm like, I'm upset. I'm like, oh, this is like the only run I really read of Daredevil, which I know I'm going to have to read like Frank Miller's run and all of that. I know people are going to recommend that. One day I will. But this is how I got into Daredevil. I was never a big Daredevil fan before this. And it was a pretty good ending. I feel like it's more of an ending to an arc though. You know, we get to see that Daredevil doesn't end up writing his book, and you know, how important his supporting cast is. And you know, the action part of this issue is that he pretends to be a villain. And pretends that Matt Murdock's dead, but Fisk ends up finding out that's him. But a really fun part of that scene is that he, you know, because he's blind, he's able to manipulate voices a bit better. And, you know, a regular ear wouldn't be able to hear that it's Matt, but someone who's blind would be able to see it. So we get to see Madam Web actually be able to hear, oh, that's Matt. So she figures out it's Matt. And I like that idea. I like that they added Madam Web. It's been a while since we've seen her. And, you know, even talk a little bit about her past. So that was cool. So yeah, a lot of good action, good artwork. I really like one of these action scenes where he literally just kicks Fisk like that. I thought that was kind of a unique action scene there. And yeah, it was a solid book. I liked it. The ending, again, I wanted to cry with it, but I didn't. It wasn't like weeping ending. But it was a good ending. And, you know, it shows how important Matt's supporting cast is. And I'm glad they highlighted that, because I think that was one of the best parts of this issue, was the introduction to Kristen and, you know, some of the challenges Foggy had to go through with this series. So Daredevil issue 18 gets 4 stars. And that's number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Broken World, issue 4. I'm disappointed this didn't make Pick of the Week, because 2 of the issues out of the 4 made Pick of the Week. And if you haven't read Broken World, it's a great series. But with this issue, we get to see that the children, whatever the cult people, they're actually the good people. They didn't do anything wrong, and we find out that the person that Elena has been working with is the bad person, and she left her students with him, so she has to go save the day, and she does. She ends up, her student actually ends up killing the guy, and they learn how to live on Earth and learn not to live in the past, because this guy, the military guy, was living in the past, and that's why he did all these stuff. So it was cool to see that the villain was flipped. The artwork's beautiful. I wish I could show it, but my comic store didn't have it this week, so I read it digitally. But it was cool to see the villain flip. Again, the artwork's beautiful. And I liked the relationship Elena made with her students, too. That, you know, the girl kept calling her professor. It's like, no, call me Elena. And, you know, she realizes that she won't see her family. And she doesn't want to have a grudge about it. She wants to live her new life. You know, it was like kind of a bittersweet ending with that. Like, I understood why they did it. It's like, you know, of course, you're not going to have that happy ending. But she's making a new happy ending for herself. But the issue, sorry, the issue builds up so much on, you know, her seeing her family, and another thing they build up so much on is her past, and they never really reveal her past. They're just like, oh, it's mysterious. I really hope Broken World has a prequel series, because I want to know why Elena's so badass. I want to know exactly why she's this person, why she was left back, and that was the most intriguing part of issue 1, and I think that's really not answered in this series. So hopefully there will be another mini-series to kind of answer those questions. So, you know, they're, again, bittersweet ending, but it's still a really cool action-packed issue, and I liked how they utilized guns here. I thought they did it well, like how the girl learned how to shoot. I thought that was cool. So yeah, I give it 4 stars. A little bit on the disappointing side, but still a really, really good series. So I end up picking, I recommend that you end up picking it up. Alright, so let's move on to number 4. which is a new series from Image, Plutona. It's written by Jeff Lemire. And Jeff Lemire, for me, has always been a hit and miss. Sometimes I like his writing. I really do not like his artwork, but sometimes I like his writing, and sometimes, you know, it's a miss for me. And this is a total hit. I really liked this book. It's about these kids. I guess they're like 14, I would say. They're 14 years old, and they all come from different circumstances. You know, parents that love them, parents that don't like them and don't really recognize them, parents that are too overprotective, and they're all, you know, go to the same school. And our main girl, she has a lot of confidence for her. I think she's kind of cocky, kind of selfish. She doesn't really want to take care of her brother. She steals her best friend's coat and is like, oh, but it looks better on me. And the best friend has, you know, not insecurities, but she's like, all right, you could keep it, whatever. She's kind of passive about it. And then we see that in the end they all come together because they just end up coming together and they're like talking, and then the main character's brother runs away. He's like, oh, where's my brother? I gotta find him. And he actually ends up finding a dead hero. And they are all coming from different paths. They have to become friends because they have this secret that they've found a dead hero. Will they get powers? I don't know. Will it be like a power pack thing going on? I don't know. But I really liked it. And the artwork, I read this digitally, but the artwork was really well done. It was kind of on this cartoony side, but it fit really well for the story. There's a secondary story that I thought that was really well done too, which is Jeff Lemire's art, so I didn't really like it that much, but we actually see the background story of this hero, that she has a family, and it was like her you know, she's just going out for the night to be a hero. Her family knows that she's a hero, and she dies. And it is like, oh my god, that death feels even worse now because she ended up dying, and you actually know her story. It seems like we'll learn a bit more of her story too as the series goes on. But I totally recommend this. I think this is definitely a series can be overlooked, but it was really fun, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Alright, let's move on to number 3, which is Mockingbird, issue 1. This is really good. You know, I'm not a huge Mockingbird fan. I'm not a fan of Mockingbird, but I'm not like, oh my god, hardcore Mockingbird fan. But I like the character. I don't think she's utilized enough, but hopefully now that she's becoming popular on the show, she will be. And here, it was a really good story because we get to see that her mentor dies, and we also see the aftermath of her coming back to life. And her mentor's son wants to find out exactly what happens when you come back to life from S.H.I.E.L.D. And is this wrong? Is this right? And, you know, it plays up on, you know, who Mockingbird is. Like, she pretends that she's psychic and she really is not. And she uses her spy skills to tell what card that the son would pick. So she says, oh, what playing card would you pick? And she says, oh, you know, Ace of Spades, whatever it was. And she guesses right because she's able to be that smart to guess it right and pretend that she has psychic powers. And the artwork is so beautiful. It's the same artist as Lady Killer, and it fits so well for the series. I wish this was ongoing. Love the artwork. And also the way they dealt with patterns. That was a big thing. It was kind of trippy, but it worked. So that was really cool. And also there's a secondary story in this issue for Red Widow, and I was like, oh, you know, I didn't know I was getting a Red Widow story, but okay. I don't really know much about this character because she's new, and I'm not a big Black Widow fan, but I liked it a lot. We see that Red Widow is homeless. She was spent time in S.H.I.E.L.D. They took her in and, you know, kind of trapped her, and Black Widow saved her as a little kid and didn't really do much for her, even though she promised. She's like, well, I'm going to be my own hero now. And honestly, it made me want to pick up this graphic novel. The artwork was really good. She was pretty badass, Red Widow, and I want to see the connections because there's a lot of parallels between them throughout the issue. You know, I think it's rare when both stories are actually really good. Usually the secondary story would be, it's okay, or the main story is like, it's okay, or the artwork's not good for both of them, or whatever. There's circumstances where, you know, one story is better than the other when you have two stories. But here, the secondary story was really good. The main story was really good. The artwork was great for both of them. Pick this up. If you're not a Mockingbird fan, you might become a Mockingbird fan. If you want to see more Mockingbird, you learn a lot about her, and I think they balance the TV show version of her and the comic book version of her very well here. They add elements from both. It was really well done. So I'm going to give Mockingbird issue 1 4.5 stars. It was almost close to 4 stars, but because it has really great artwork and again, both stories being really well done, I'll give it 4.5 stars. And that's number 3. Alright, so moving on to number 2, which is Starlord and Kitty Pryde. Yeah, this is the end. This is the last chapter, Starlord and Kitty Pryde. It's just another fun addition. We get to see Starlord and Kitty Pryde. They are kidnapped by Gambit. They're able to trick him, and they're able to team up with Kitty Pryde's robot self. I don't remember what they called him, but, or her, but I don't remember what they called the robot. But, yeah, so she ends up teaming up with the robot, and Drax also helps them, pretends to be Dr. Doom, and beats up Gambit. Gambit ends up, you know, being thrown away by the Thors, and Kitty Pryde and Starlord, they go their separate ways, but they understand each other more. And, you know, we find out that the secret object was actually Rocket Raccoon's, tail, and at first Kitty's like, well, I need to bring this back, come on. And then she sees how much Peter cares about this thing, and she's like, alright, you know what, keep it, just don't tell anybody. I understand what it means for a world to be lost, and not having anything to really remember it by. So she understands that. And then Starlord says, oh, did you enjoy our date? And she's like, this was not a date. I do not date. And then she ends up kissing him. I love their chemistry, you know. When the relationship was first announced, I was like, whoa, this is a really weird pairing. Where did this come from? But this has been one of my favorite pairings of the year. I'm having a blast with it. And Starlord and Kitty Pryde proves that. The artwork, first of all, is beautiful for this series. I love the facial expressions. It's so clean. I love it. Especially for the comedy. I think it works really well. So yeah, great artwork, great story, great chemistry between these two characters, and it was a good ending, honestly. I was really scared that the series started out so well that it'd be like, oh, it'd be a horrible ending. But it was a really good ending that you could be satisfied with. So overall, pick up this miniseries. It's really well done. It is one of my favorites from Secret Wars. So Starlord and Kitty Pryde gets 4.5 stars. So moving on to number 1, which is Silk, issue 7. Yeah, I really enjoyed Silk. First, let me just say a little negative about the book. The artwork is different, and it took me a little while to get used to. I do like the cartooniness a little bit more. There's some, like, lanky parts of the artwork, so that's something, I guess is a negative, but still fits the story pretty well. So yeah, overall I like the artwork, but I do like the cartoony one a little bit more for the book. But with this issue, the world's ending. You know, it's the last issue of this volume of Silk, and J. Jonah Jameson finds evidence of Cindy's brother, and he says, well, you know, go find out if it's him, because he's under a different name, and Cindy's like, it can't be him, you know, he's working for a gang, that's not my brother. And she ends up helping a lot of people along the way before she finds her brother, because J. Jonah Jameson pushes her to find him. It says, this is your job, you gotta do it. And then along the way, she almost dies. I mean, the world's ending anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But Pokemon Man helps him. And I love the narration that Silk gives. It says, well, you know what, this is like my only friend, really. And I love that they have a connection. He was a villain at first, but now they're friends. I really like that. And by the end, Silk is able to find her brother, and he's damaged. He's actually in assisted living, and has all these Silk posters in the background. So he's obviously a fan, even though he was the one who pushed her away. He's a fan, has been following her, and they end up being together as the world ends. It's such a good story. There's so many great details here. Pokemon Man, J. Jonah Jameson having a heart. I love about this. One thing I love about this series is that J. Jonah Jameson does have a heart and shows that, but he's still his J. Jonah Jameson self. And then the ending, finally, you know, having some revelations about this family mystery of her finding her brother and not being the person that she remembers that is part of this gang. And I think it's a good lead up for the next series where she's going to be working with the villain, probably to try to regain her brother's status. And I'm really excited, hopefully, to see more of their relationship, more of their interactions, because I love the flashback stuff, and something I really enjoyed about this series, and something that was different was the flashback stuff. So I'm really looking forward to the next Silk series, and I think it was a good lead up, a good ending, and so many great emotional beats here. So Silk issue 7 was my pick of the week, and I give it 4.5 stars. So hope you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there's links for my comic book, Like Father Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father Like Daughter. And let me know in the comments below what was your worst pick of the week and best pick of the week and everything in between. And of course, I'll have Comic episode next week. I'll see you guys later. Bye.